What's up? We're gonna go over how we use some of the equipment here at the Woodshop in the Makerspace, but before we do that, we're gonna go over basic safety. Whenever you're in the lab, either room, down here, you have to follow simple rules, but when you are in the Woodshop, you do have to follow some extra rules. For example, you do have to roll up your sleeves, you have to make sure you take any of your jewelry off, or any watches, or anything that's long that might get caught up in the machine. If you have long hair, you're gonna wanna pin it up or back. You also need to be wearing long pants, as you should if you're in here, and closed-toed shoes, as if you're in the Makerspace at any time. And the last thing, when you are in the woodshop, you wanna be wearing safety glasses, even if you're not working, because somebody else might be working next to you and something might fly off and hit you. So before you come in this room, make sure you're positioned in this situation so that while you're working in here, you are following safety rules. All right, whenever you have a bigger sheet of wood that you need to cut down to use on the bandsaw, you're gonna use our wall saw. I'm gonna take this over here. I've already marked it. I'm gonna go on our wall saw. I'm gonna bring it up to where you want. I've marked my cut here. Make sure that is down. And then you're gonna loosen the knob up here. So you're gonna loosen this knob so that this can move up and down. You have your on and off switch right here. So I'm gonna bring it down. We have a mark here for you, but I do try to look at the blade or through the crack here to see where my mark is, and I line up the blade with my mark. So I'm confident it's gonna be exactly where I want it. Make sure it is pressed all the way down at the bottom. As I cut, I wanna make sure to remove the piece that I cut, anything on the smaller side, so that it doesn't come back before I come back up. So I'm gonna go down, remove this piece, come back up, and then turn the machine off. Now I have a smaller piece that I can cut on the bandsaw. Okay, now that I have a smaller piece that I can maneuver on the table saw here, the bandsaw, one of the things you want to make sure before you start cutting that the guard here is not too high. Because as I am cutting, this allows me to get my hands in here and possibly cut myself. So we need to adjust that and bring it down to our piece. To do that, we're going to use this guy. But before you start turning this part on the bandsaw, you have to make sure you loosen this part. Okay, so you have to make sure that's loose so that this can actually move it up and down. If this is tight, it's going to snap and break something inside. So make sure that is loose. Then you bring it down to your part, and you keep it just slightly above your part. So you want to make sure it's slightly above your part. Then you tighten the knob up here at the top. You don't have to crank on it, just needs to be firm. And now you're lined up, and it's less likely for your hand to get into the blade area. My rule of thumb is just keep your hand out of the blue area, or there's usually some sort of sacrificial part that's around here. Just keep your hand out and away from that. One of the things you can use is our guides here. It's much better that you cut these because I can print more of these. I can 3D print these, and it's better that you cut these instead of your hand to get any little pieces, or as you're guiding and using this for smaller cuts. So make sure to use this one. Now before you start and turn it on, you gotta make sure you have your vacuum running. So we're gonna turn that on. I've already set up my guard here. To turn our thing on, we have the on button, the off button, and the emergency stop. So you press the on button and you press the stop button. If there is an emergency, you lock that in. That won't allow you to turn it on, so you have to make sure that that is turned out before you turn it on. If the machine is still not turning on, it may be unplugged, but that means it's out of order. So don't load, plug it in, and turn it on. Any of the equipment is unplugged or not working, there's a very good reason. Come talk to one of the staff members. Before you start cutting, make sure the vacuum is on. Now I'm gonna turn this on, and we're gonna make a quick cut. I'm going to show you a couple basic things that you can do with the bandsaw. First, we're going to cut a circle. Not everything here has to be straight. And then also a notch in here, how we get this kind of shape. I will go over this later, but first thing that we're going to do is create our circle. Now, you can't do too tight of a radius because the bend in there will pull on the back side of the blade. We have different size blades that are more suited for straight cuts and curved cuts. You can see we have a little bit of a smaller blade here, so we're gonna use this one, and I'm gonna start cutting around this, and I'm gonna stay just outside on that line so I can sand up to it later. Make sure if you have any little pieces in there that you clear those out, put your things away, and most importantly, clean up after yourself. So make sure to pick up any of your scraps, throw them away, and also get a dustpan and clean up around that area and on the floor around you. And at the end of the day, when you are done working, make sure you clean up all of your mess and return your tools. Now before I do this notch in here, I'm gonna go over and clean up the rough cut that I just made. So you can see it's a little rough right now, using our sander. Now there's two ways you can use the sander. You can use the flat side here or the disc sander on this side. If you do use this side, keep your sanding on this side where it's going down. On this side, if you start sanding here, it's gonna wanna kick up. On this side over here, it pulls down, so you wanna keep your piece down or use this as a backstop. But always make sure to turn on the vacuum before you start. There's a switch on the back side to turn this on. You just have to reach around. I'm gonna turn on the vacuum and then I will turn on the switch. Now that we have a nice clean edge and we've sanded it up there, I'm going to show you how I do this notch. Now to make this notch, this is the part that we want to get rid of. What you're going to do is with the bandsaw, you're going to come in down this way, and then you're going to come straight out while it's still running. Then you'll do the same thing here, and then come back out this way. Now to make this final cut, what I need to do is come in this way, making a curved cut that comes down to here. Once I have that cut, this will all go away. I will then be able to bring in the blade a little bit tighter like this and make another curved cut that hits that line. Once I've done that, I will get rid of this, which will allow me to come in with the blade sideways and make my final straight cut right there. Now that you kind of see what the plan is to make this cut, I'm gonna go do the cut. Now that's how you got that final cut. We do have some hand sandpaper and some files if you'd like to clean that up. That is up to you on how you want to finish the cleanup. Now I'm gonna go over how you make this cut. All right, to do this cut right here, we need to use a drill bit and drill into each of the corners. And once we have the holes for those corners, we'll be able to take it to the jigsaw where we can start here and make our cuts. So we'll be able to cut here, here, then we'll reset, cut here. And that will give us our interior cut that we're looking for. But first I'll show you how you can make these holes using the drill press. To make the holes, we're gonna use our drill press here. Now to put the drill bit in the chuck, we're gonna need a chuck key that you'll check out. Now I'm gonna go over how this 3-jaw works. It's basically 3 jaws that clamp onto this part. And now you wanna make sure you don't bury the drill bit so that it's clamping on the cutting part. And you don't wanna be right on the tip so that it wavers. So when you put this in, you wanna make sure you're just above that, okay? Just above the cutting area. Once it's tight, you're then gonna bring in the chuck key, which goes in right here, and then you'll tighten it. Now, not many things do I say that you should crank on or make sure are very tight, but this is one of those things you wanna make sure it's very tight so that it does not spin inside the 3 jaws. Now to adjust the table height, you need to come here and adjust the table height. Now before you do that, you need to make sure that this clamp is loose. If this is tight, it's gonna bend this and want to snap it. So that's how you can adjust your table height. So I'm gonna bring it up pretty close to our part here. Once I'm happy with where it is, I will tighten this up so the table does not move anymore. And then we'll come back to our piece here because we have to make sure it is clamped down. I like to use some sort of backstop as I go through this. It's gonna come out with a better part. I'm gonna just bring my piece to where I want my hole to be, and then I will clamp down my piece of wood. Perfect. Once it's nice and snug, I can then turn on the machine. We have the green button to turn it on, the black button to turn it off. If the key is removed or it is unplugged, it is out of service. Do not use it. I'll turn it on. We will come down, drilling our hole. And you can see right away, the material changed colors. I can tell that it is done. Do not try to stop anything with your hands. Just let it slow down. That goes for the bandsaw as well. Once you're done with that, make sure that you clean up any of your sawdust or any of that stuff. Make sure to vacuum it up when you are done. I'm gonna continue making the 4 holes so that we can finish this cut. Now that I'm done with my 4 holes, we're gonna use the chuck key to break loose our chuck, which will loosen that, and then I can take our drill bit out and I can return the checked out tools. Now that I have our holes ready for our table saw here, this is kind of a table jigsaw. We have to get it in. So we're gonna bring this up, the guide, which allows us access to our saw, where I will then put our saw through the hole that we made. So now that we have that, I can bring this back down. Make sure that this aligns on the guide there, that you don't bend the blade. Then it comes down horizontally, and you're gonna make sure to tighten this up. So then it is tight. And the last thing you need to do is just the height on this, because this is gonna want to move up and down. So you need to have this in place so that it prevents your piece of wood from going up and down. And you need to make sure you have a nice little base on here, and you can look right here as we make the cut. I'm gonna just basically connect these holes. Once I get to here and here, I might have to adjust and start again, but we have our on and off switch down here at the bottom. If the yellow key is missing, it will not work. So if you do see that, that means there is an issue. If you see anything going wrong with it, or if it's making any weird sounds on any of this equipment, you just have to inform one of the staff to let us know. We're gonna turn this on, I'm gonna make the cuts and finish this piece out. I'm at a position here where I'm trying to make this turn, but I do not have enough room here to turn this piece here. So you might come across that, which is not a big deal because we're able to adjust by bringing this up. And now I can adjust my whole piece here and get ready to do my final cut from this hole. And now I'll be able to finish this out. Again, as you come down, make sure not to bend the blade, and then I will tighten this again. And we're ready to make that final cut. Now we have our final piece here, throw that scrap away, and this is our final piece that we're done cutting with. Now there are rare occasions when you need to use a hand drill when you're working on your part and it needs to be on the side or something like that. So we do have clamps here, and we also do have hand drills. Now do not drill into the table. If you're coming down vertically, that's what the drill presses are for, but there are times when you need to drill in sideways. This also has a 3-jaw chuck where you can put that in and then come here and tighten this up just like that. So now that you have that in there, you can tighten and drill that. I'm gonna put a hole in the center so you can kind of see that you can come in through the side. Same thing when you're done, do not grab it while it's spinning. I recommend you do also unplug it whenever you're done and then bring it back. You do have some hand tools and then return your drill bit. But there are times too when you need to use the handsaw, the jigsaw here as well. This is very simple, on and off, and it goes like that. Recommend you clamp it down if you are cutting on the side of the edge of a table or something like that. Do not be holding your piece and cut while out in the air. That is extremely dangerous. Use the table jigsaw or clamp your piece down because there are occasions when you need to use the hand tools in that case. We do have a DeWalt powered miter saw here. This is great for cutting 2x4s and sometimes 2x6s. I'm gonna go over kind of how you can adjust this thing. Right now we're set at an angle of 0, but before we do that, you have to know how to unlock that guy and bring it down. This is where we want it. This is the safest position. You unlock that, which then allows this to come up and down. You also need a battery to put that in. The last thing you need to know is you have this little safety switch that has to be turned over. When you bring your hand over, you make sure that is there, and then you can power it. So it won't go until you have that. Now, before you set up your piece, there are some adjustments that you can have. I have it set at 0 in this angle and 0, so we're getting a perfectly straight cut. If you want, you can adjust the angle with the knob back here, and this will allow you to get different angles. So you can get some crazy angles here if you need to do something like that. But most of what you're gonna do is gonna be at 0, and then also you need to bring this up, and then you can adjust it all the way to 45. It actually will snap into position in 45. If you want to be more in the middle, you can do that at all your different settings here. So let's say you wanted to do a 45, it clamps into place, you lock that in. Now you're ready to cut your piece here. So we're gonna do a 45 cut on this piece right here. So this is your no-go zone with your hands, the yellow, just like we've talked about before. Bring it down. Perfect. So now we have a 45 cut on this, but now you wanna make sure to bring it back to 0. So now we're locked back in place. And the last thing too, is if you have some wider pieces in here, you might need to adjust this part right over here. So you can see there is a little knob right here that allows you to loosen that guy. And then you can actually slide this guy back and forth. So you actually can come in and make a cut just like that. But most of what you're gonna do is gonna be in that position, 0, 0, doing a straight cut. When you're done using it, bring this guy down, lock it in place, and you're good to go. And of course, always vacuum up when you're done. Now before I do go back to working on putting this piece on a robot or whatever I may be working on, whatever my project may be, before I just go off, I need to make sure that I take the cleaning tools that we have laying around the shop. We have dustpans, vacuums, brooms, there's tons of vacuums around, handheld vacuums, and I make sure to clean up after myself. You always want to make sure you clean up after yourself as this place gets dusty. Clean after every time you use the lab, and the lab will stay clean. And these dustpans are great for cleaning around this area as well. So you can make sure to clean up after yourself, especially around this stuff and the drill press. It makes everything last a lot longer and things like that. So if you've got any questions or you're unsure on how to do any of this stuff, always ask for help. It's easier for you guys to ask for help, as it takes a few seconds for us to give you a refresh course on any of this material. If you do forget it, you can always talk to one of the staff members here that they can go over with you and give you a quick refresher. If you do make a mistake by turning one of the wrong dials or knobs or do something like that, it can take hours or days for us to fix or replace that, and it just makes everything a lot harder and more difficult when all you have to do is ask the question and speak with our staff. Thank you for using the Makerspace.